Hey everyone, this is Chris. We're here with Ryan Crutchfield and James Brown. How you guys doing?
Pretty
Ew.
good.
This is the podcast for the SEC for Week 4. Besides the Florida-Tennessee game, which is always big for the Florida Gator fans, we found four other games that are very intriguing this week, dealing with SEC teams. The first of which is the Georgia Bulldogs at the Arizona State Sun Devils. Last week, Arizona State lost to UNLV. It looked pretty bad. They lost at home. I had some pretty big expectations for them, especially being in the Pac-10. With other than USC, I didn't think that anybody would be up there for second place. I thought it was definitely Arizona State's for the taking, maybe Oregon. But Arizona State laid an egg last week, and Georgia, even though they haven't looked all that great in the last two games, they still are undefeated and they still are extremely talented. I expect Georgia to go in there and just lay it on them, probably win by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, this one's lost a little bit of its luster by Arizona State losing last week, but it's still a big game with Georgia traveling that far. And I got to take Georgia too. I probably would have taken them regardless of the outcome of the Arizona State game.
It's at Arizona State. If Georgia has to travel farther than they have of any game, other than a BCS game, uh, Arizona State's pissed. They have to be really pissed. And they're at home. They know the ramifications of playing an SEC game. I take Georgia, but I think it's going to be close. Not your three-touchdown theory.
Conference game that's a big deal this week is Alabama at Arkansas. If you look at Arkansas's schedule, the next four games, all four of them, because of the Texas game that's been moved to their bye week from the Hurricane, all four games are against top 10 opponents with the current AP poll top 10. Alabama traveling to Fayetteville to start this off. Now, Alabama gets to take a true road trip here, but Arkansas has looked very weak. Sure, they had a bye last week, but it was an unplanned bye, so it's not like they've had an extra week to prepare for Alabama. So I've got to think you take Alabama, even though they're a young team on a road game, so you think maybe there could be a surprise. I just haven't seen anything out of Arkansas that's shown that they can win a game of this magnitude.
Arkansas. They're going to win. I got nothing. I don't know either team. I know Julio Jones, but Alabama always lays an egg in big games. And Nick Saban, he's a douche. Arkansas wins.
I'm trying to hold back from absolutely dying in laughter over here. Um, I think that I think that Alabama wins this game pretty handily. Arkansas has looked really, really crappy all season. Even though they've won all of their games, they probably would have gotten killed last week against Texas. Luckily, Hurricane Ike hit, which is probably the only good thing to come out of Hurricane Ike so far for the state of Texas. I'd have to say that yeah, Alabama probably wins this game, even though it's on the road. Arkansas usually kind of steps up in some of these games and they surprise people. A couple years ago, they beat Auburn on the road when nobody thought that they probably were going to do that. But I got to think that Alabama takes it to them. They beat Clemson in the first week of the season at Clemson, and they just looked phenomenal that week. And they haven't shown me anything of coming down from that yet. So I'll stay safe and I'll take Alabama. And we'll move to the next game, which is a pretty intriguing one. It's Mississippi State at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech got a big win a couple weeks ago against Boston College, but then ended up losing this past week to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's still a good team, so Georgia Tech, it's not a bad loss at all. But you gotta think that Georgia Tech at home, they've looked pretty good against some good competition. I think that they win the game, but Mississippi State did their defense does look pretty good. They held they held Auburn to 3 points last week and lost 3-2. It's just unfortunate that Mississippi State really can't move the ball. Their offense is kind of struggling. So I would probably take Georgia Tech, but it's going to be a very, very close game and a low scoring game at that.
I've also got to take Georgia Tech in this game. Mississippi State made a bowl last year. Yeah, they have the good defense. They lost a road game to Louisiana Tech, so road games against Techs just isn't a good thing. I got to go with Georgia Tech.
You guys picking with your head and not with your hearts. The SEC. Sylvester Croom, their defense. They held Auburn, a pretty damn good team, or at least talent-wise, to only, 3 points? Yeah, they don't have to travel that far. They win. ACC is inferior.
And the last game that we've circled involving SEC teams is probably the biggest game of the weekend. easily. It's LSU at Auburn. This game always decides, or at least has a big say in the West. They're always very physical games. They're always a lot of fun to watch. It's the ESPN night game, and it's in Auburn. I really don't know which way to go with this game. I've been going back and forth all week because Auburn's pretty good, but they just haven't looked like they figured out the new offensive scheme yet. They've already switched quarterbacks, so I've got to go with LSU. But this is going to be a very tight game, and I could easily change my mind again before Saturday. But I still think LSU wins is the one I keep coming back to.
LSU wins 5-2.
Yeah, I think that LSU also wins this game. LSU, yeah, they played some pretty inferior opponents. North Texas, Appalachian State is a pretty good team for Division II or FCS or whatever they call it now. But LSU's looked pretty good, and I think that they just have too much talent for this Auburn team that hasn't really stepped up yet and played that well all season. So for Ryan and James, this is Chris. See you next week. Bye.